Have you heard about um, locals spraying water on tourists? Yes, this is a Songkran festival somewhere in Asia, and it is a fun thing to do. They spray water on each other, and tourists participate. Everyone has a good water fight. It's fun. But then Spain decided they were going to do the same thing, and they started spraying water on tourists. But it is not a joyful one. Let's talk about that. The biggest problem with the anti-tourism movement that you're now seeing, especially in Spain, and then in other parts of Europe, you've got the same sentiments. It's just mass tourism, over tourism, whatever you want to call it. Someone has something to say, and they're not happy. And let's talk about that. So basically, Spain is like, oh, there are too many people coming here. We don't want more tourists in our country. And they start protesting. And you would want to agree with them that, look, this is a good idea. Yes, you're right. Defend your right. But I think it's misguided, and obviously they don't know what they're talking about. Yes, I said it. I know a lot of people are saying, yeah, the environment, mass tourism, and all that. First of all, you would think that tourists have taken over the country, and the country can no longer breathe. The funny thing is that Spain is not even the most visited country in Europe. France has that, with over 100 million people visiting every year. Did I say over 100 million visitors? Okay, well, that is a lot. And then you're thinking, well, what about Spain? Spain is like, I think, about 80 million or so visitors. So it's not as if it's the biggest one, and the country cannot cope. But I think what the problem is this: the problem with mass tourism is poor people versus rich people. Let me explain what I mean by that. Anytime people complain about mass tourism, it's always about, oh, Airbnb, we can no longer rent. House, the price of housing is really high. We cannot rent. There's not enough housing, and there is not enough, housing to buy. Now we can no longer own houses and all that. But rich people don't have those type of conversation. When the season comes, they just, go on their private jet and go elsewhere. And then they come back when it's a bit more chilled and relaxed. You get the point. So when people complain about mass tourism, they basically using tourists as they're scapegoating tourists, and they're not. It's just basically blaming the game, not blaming the player, not blaming the game. When you think about it, they're not the first. Amsterdam said, look, there are too many cruise ships coming into the port, and basically they're not really contributing that much, because most of this cruise ship would come in with hundreds of people, if not thousands. They go down, walk around Amsterdam center, go back on the boat, and then leave. But most of the time, they don't spend enough money because they get their food and drinks and everything on board. They even have their shopping on board. So they just come to Amsterdam, take a selfie, clog the whole road, and then it was like Amsterdam's like, yeah, don't bother coming, go elsewhere. Basically, they started to limit the amount of a cruise ship that could get into the city. So the problem is basically not tourism, nor over tourism. I think the problem is local government. And to understand that, first of all, you would need to understand that the same problem actually happens not only in Spain, or like in Barcelona, Mallorca, or Tenerife, or Ibiza, where all these people, a lot of tourists go. Especially the British tourists are very notorious for going to places like that, because the pound is strong, and going to Spain is cheap. So it is just that simple. So if you have a cheap country where wages are low, the food, you've got nice weather, so you're just only a couple of hours flight away from people coming to spend their money in your country. And then, so you have Venice, the city saying, yeah, we're going to do the same thing. We need to limit over tourism. Amsterdam did the same thing. Bali in Indonesia did the same thing. Spain is trying to do the same thing. Ibiza and all that. But the problem is this. Anytime they said, look, let's try to limit over tourism, or what they do is, okay, we're going to put a fee. And that is what Venice did. They said day tripper fee, which is nonsense. So basically, they're saying if you want to come, you need to pay. People say, yeah, we've already paid. We paid to fly here. We already paid to have what's called to stay in a hotel that's closer to $100, if not more. So giving us like €7 or €10 of daily fee to visit, it doesn't matter. We just pay and still visit. You see the point? How does that help the local people? It doesn't. Because the government gets the money, the local government gets the money, but then it still doesn't prevent people from coming. So you're not really solving the problem. You're just basically sort of loan sharking, getting money from tourists and not solving the problem. And then people say, yeah, it's just like putting lipstick on a pig, and people are like, yeah, okay, our local government is doing something, but then what's the real problem? What do people really want to solve? I don't think it's a lot of people coming. If you have your own house, you have enough money to live, to lead a good life, you don't really care about all the tourists coming into town. They make a lot of noise, but often after the high season, it's just a bit more quiet. It's just quiet, and it's not a part of your daily grind. It's not a showstopper for you. But anyway, the biggest problem is this, that when Spain it was still in financial crisis, a lot of people with money started to buy housing in all the cheaper areas. And unfortunately, a lot of the poorer people there saw a good opportunity to make money. So they start selling their own houses, and they start selling. And then the more they sold, the neighbors saw it and thought, oh, my neighbor just sold and he made good change. Let me do the same. Because then I could even ask for more. And more people started selling, the prices started to go up, and the locals could no longer buy. And most of these houses, they could not even rent. And the reason for this is that they've been turned into Airbnb or these temporary accommodation. And because of that, it creates demand. Higher demand, low offer, it increases prices. And the good thing is that anytime you sell a house, the governments take a cut. Taxes, the seller take a cut, and they do renovations. So people repairing houses, construction, make money. A lot of people make money, but then it means it becomes more expensive. And because of that, locals, I wouldn't even say locals, poor people could no longer find suitable accommodation. And the same thing when you go to places like Seville in the south of Spain. That place is notoriously hot. It's just, don't go in summer, put it that way. It's just too hot. So you don't want to go to Seville in summer. So it means in summer, not a lot happens. And if you go outside Seville about 1 hour, there are loads and loads of villages, really hot, but nobody goes there. A lot of the villages have been abandoned. So there are houses, there are accommodations, but without jobs, nobody wants to move to those locations. And those who own homes there, the houses are worth nothing. So they've just been abandoned, and people have moved to more built up areas where you have possibility for employment. And that brings us to the next problem. The next problem is that the biggest problem is that a lot of the jobs, tourism creates a lot of jobs. And then it creates a concentration of the population. And a lot of the people in Barcelona, Mallorca, Ibiza, all these people are people who probably came from other locations, other parts of Spain, and also looking for the free homes, or no, I mean for jobs. And when you find a job there, you need accommodation, and because you need accommodation, you get the problem. It drives up demand, and then you've got immigrants coming in, you've got tourists coming in. It just becomes everyone fighting for a piece of the pie, and that is where the big problem is. And you can't really blame people for that. So you have overcrowding, the housing crisis, economic inequality. Yes, it's a fact of life, and that is just the way things are. And so it says that in Mallorca, for example, like 80% of residents surveyed said they avoid certain beaches due to excessive crowd. Yeah, but the same thing could be said for London. You go to London during the summer months, Oxford Street is just notoriously busy. And the locals are like, yeah, I know, let the tourists have their fun. When it rains, people are still there, they'll still come. But after that, the lowest season comes, you can just go and chill in Oxford Street. Or you go really early before the tourists get up, so you get all that. Anyway, the point is that it is blaming tourists for an economic situation that they cannot really easily fix. The problem is that tourism brings a lot of money into the country. A lot of Spaniards are making a lot of money. Those who are complaining are those who are not part, or who cannot play in the game, and it's just the way things are. The government is making a lot of money with all the taxes on the restaurants, people coming to eat paella or other Spanish food, and the sun, the beaches, buying stuff and just fighting for all the hotels being filled up. So when you have all those things, people complaining are just basically not looking at the bigger picture. And so if you were to basically stop tourism, which the government is not going to do, because then they solve one problem and then create another one. For example, job losses. If you've got abandoned villages around the country and people move into the cities to get jobs, what's going to happen if you stop tourism? Then it means even in the cities you get abandoned, people start moving out, going to other countries. You get the problem. And then so job losses is going to be a big one. No government wants economic downtown or slow down, because if you have that, basically in the next election the population is going to kick you out because they're broke. So it's in the government's interest that people actually have jobs, and when they have jobs they spend money, they're partying, they're traveling, they're not really worried about the government. And that's a good thing, because when the people forget the government is there, basically you're doing a good job. But when people start complaining because they don't have jobs, they don't have money, that's not good. And now another thing is housing market adjustment. A lot of people have bought into the idea that housing is an investment. You buy a house, the price would go up over time, and then you'll be able to probably make a profit. Buy the house, sell it, profit, buy another one, and keep going, and then you become rich. So everyone does that. So it's in the interest of the system, of the game, to reduce the output of housing and make sure the demand is constantly high. And the higher the demand, the more value your houses gain, and then you can make a profit. So the system is just designed that way that there isn't much you can do about it. And when you think about that, you're thinking, what else is the next step? There isn't next step. So what locals have started to do is this. When they go to restaurants, all the restaurants along the beach, or people just having a good time, tourists come and they're spending money, eating at the restaurants, and then other locals come with their water pistols and they're spraying all the tourists, basically attacking the tourists and just making them really angry. And I think that is a cheap stunt, because when you think about it, if you want to be angry with your local government. Go and spray them in their office with water or whatever. But of course they're not listening to you, so you think we'll make tourist life miserable. But the problem is that Spain's economy depends a lot on tourism, and if you scare the tourists away, it's not as if they don't have options. there are other locations. Turkey is a very popular location for European tourists. Some people go to Thailand is very popular. So there are places that people could go to, and even Portugal is popular. So the more they make it miserable for for tourists to go to Spain, all the other countries look around will be like, oh, please God, make the Spaniards kick out all the tourists so that they can come and spend their cash with us, and that's it. So Spain would finally lose, and that is why the government is not going to ban. They'll put some cosmetic changes just to say, look, we're doing something, but they know that the money, the income, the revenue generated from tourism is something that you cannot just forgo in a country that relies on tourism.